All right, welcome to the Buffalo Plus channel, sponsored by Candidips. Mike Catalana. I'm Jenna Cottrell. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, especially subscribe. We always love that. That's huge for our channel here. Mike, Josh Allen. Bills fans, this is what it feels like to have your franchise guy and have the deal be done. Mike, what does this mean for this team? Because it's been so long since this has last happened.
Well, we used to talk about this, let alone quarterbacks, just first round draft picks for a while. Guys you wanted to sign to a deal and guys who wanted to be in Buffalo. Think about what it was like for a lot of years here where, players were ready to run out the door. We know that wasn't the case with Josh Allen. I mean, we were there in 2018 when they drafted him. He looks like a baby compared to now, right? The hard life of the NFL. But think about that guy that night and how excited he was to get this chance. But what did he say that night, Jenna? What did he talk about?
He said he wanted to prove the Bills, Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott right.
Yeah, he did it, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. And I think he's always been a guy that's so motivated. He talks about embodying Buffalo, blue collar, hardworking. But seeing someone, and you mentioned this earlier, so many players couldn't wait to leave Buffalo, to get out, to have a guy that's 25 years old. He's going to be locked up by the Bills for the next 8 years. It just talks about the transition and the transformation of this franchise. And Josh is a huge part of that. And you know what I loved today was just hearing from Josh Allen, talking after he signed his contract. He was very matter of fact. He was very Sean McDermott in his tone. It was, hungry and humble. But when he talked about how much fun he's having and the team and how competitive practices are, his face lit up. And you can just tell that he was very, boilerplate in some of his responses, which is fine. But just hearing how much he's enjoyed that. And he has a saying too, that I think his family's talked about too, you bloom where you're planted. And he's obviously been planted in Buffalo.
Yeah, the farmer in him comes out, right? From his farming days, back in California. Look, he is the guy that his teammates love. He's the guy the fans love. He's done it all in that way. But there is pressure. While he says, I'm my harshest critic, there has been very little reason over the last year to criticize Josh Allen. He's on his rookie deal. He has developed each year. But just by human nature, Jenna, you get paid this amount of money, even if he blocks out the outside noise. I mean, internally now, I think that's another thing he's going to need to block out because he's now no longer that he's not the underdog first round pick that nobody cared about. Yeah, he can say that to himself, but he's got the most guaranteed money in NFL history.
Yep.
There is added pressure on him.
Oh, 100%, 1,000%. And if I were Josh Allen, I'd be freaking out right now because thank God I'm not, because I would be like, now you're being paid like the franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
You're being paid to go out and win games. You're being paid to go out and win playoff games. You're being paid like you are ready to win a Super Bowl. And that is the expectation and what they want to bring to Buffalo, of course. But with that comes the pressure. And that's a huge part of the NFL. Look, Josh Allen has done a phenomenal job of carrying the pressure of being a guy who was made fun of straight up when he got drafted, developing, being thrown into the fire. He's done a great job with that. He's leaped over every hurdle, including Anthony Barr. But I will say, this is another ratcheted up level. There are implications and expectations that come with this amount of money. And we also talk about too, what this will mean for Brandon Beane going forward, Mike, because the salary cap will now be impacted by this.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, Beane talked about it tonight, saying that, the salary cap's impacted and there are years sort of built into this deal where he knows it's going to be a little tighter. Yeah. And look, there's a point where players are going to say in their mind, Josh is getting 40 million plus, and all of a sudden, whether it's Cole Beasley or, I would think they're going to redo Diggs next year, but there are going to be guys where they're going to have to make these big decisions. Now, it's not solely on the quarterback's contract, but let's be honest, it's a big deal. And the guy I was thinking of, when you think about Russell Wilson in Seattle, and they ended up winning a Super Bowl early, You've heard me say this. I'm not as big of Russell Wilson guy. I don't think he comes across as genuine with
Yeah.
his team or his teammates as Allen does.
Yeah.
And I think you saw him have some of those issues. But I do think that's something that Josh is going to need to avoid. He's now different than everybody. He is
Yeah.
one of the guys, but he's different than everybody because
Mm-hmm.
he's gotten paid. Now, they haven't won the championship yet because you think about like Brady and the money and Aaron Rodgers and the money. They've found a way to do that, but they've won Super Bowls. Well, in
Yeah.
Rodgers' case, one of them. So he's got to do that. But I look at what happened in Seattle and say, yeah, once he got paid, everything changed. Guys on the defense were gone. Players looked at him differently. Now
Yeah.
they've started to rebuild that up again. I'm saying this. I think Josh Allen is respected and liked by his team. But, you saw John Feliciano jokingly tweeting out about the Christmas presents. You become a different guy. He already was the first round pick in the quarterback.
Yeah.
Now he's the $258 million quarterback.
I remember you telling me very early when I started covering this team that guys pay attention to who that gets paid in the locker
Yeah.
room. Guys pay attention, and you're the quarterback of the team. You're the franchise guy. You're going to make a lot of money. You would hope to make a lot of money considering the position and how impactful it is and how important it is. But yeah, you're right. This changes the way that, again, it changes the outward expectations about him, but also probably in that room as well. What is expected of him and how that will break down for other players, what they can expect for their money. Because look, everyone loves one another, all kumbaya, but at the same point, when people's bottom lines can be impacted, that there's the opportunity. I'm not saying this is the case, but there is the opportunity for there to be,
Yeah.
maybe some feelings involved with that.
But I will say this, and I said this to you from the moment you and I talked to Josh right before his biggest night when he was drafted.
Yep.
And then we talked to him the next night
Yeah.
after the whole tweet storm and all the stuff
Yeah.
came out, because we didn't really know what kind of guy he was.
Yeah.
And he had to handle that walking in the locker room at first. And I've said this to you before. I think this guy has handled every stage of his development as a
Completely.
player and as a leader
Mhm.
very, very well. He's
Absolutely.
never appears to big time anybody.
Mhm.
So this is another one, though. He has to really understand, and I think he does, that this is another stage. Not every guy he's going to play with over this 8-year period of time has known him as the young guy trying to work his way up. They'll
Mhm.
walk in and it's like, oh, there's Josh Allen, the
Yeah.
guy who got paid.
Mhm.
And he's going to have to continue to prove that. And again, I have faith in him that way because he's
Yes.
shown us,
I agree.
year after year in these 3 years at these moments, he's done it. I'll tell you what would help that a lot. Go ahead to LA and win the Super Bowl this year.
Yep.
That would justify everything that he's done. But
Mhm.
on the field, off the field, the guy has been everything they could have wanted. And
I
you do
mean,
the draft again, he's the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah. And he's 25 years old. Like, he's had to navigate some tough circumstances from the draft night scenario to being thrown into the fire his rookie season. And there's a lot of personalities on any NFL team.
Yep.
But to see the way he has been able to kind of work his way through and seeing how beloved, literally beloved is the only word I would probably use
Yeah.
about the guys around him. I will say, and it's interesting because as someone who's covered the team for a couple years, obviously yourself more than a couple, but you see some guys when they come in and they are, very, what's the word I want? They are more
Self-absorbed?
accommodating to us.
Okay.
And then you see them get paid and they're maybe a little less, maybe a little more
Yeah.
curt, maybe a little bit more, I don't want to say diva because that's not the right word, but you know the sentiment that I'm going for.
Right.
Josh has never been like that.
No.
And I don't foresee that changing now either. I will say this is a little quick story. I remember when we first got to talk to Josh in Buffalo in terms of like had practice, one of his first practices. It was actually in training camp in Rochester. And we were waiting, all the media was waiting there for Josh to come over to be interviewed. And Josh runs up and he says, "Oh, I'm sorry to make you guys wait." And in my head, I go, "Oh, that'll change."
Yeah.
But he still has that same regard. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's what Sean McDermott even touched on. The fact
Yeah.
that He's been able to be that guy on and off the field in the community as well. And I
Yeah.
think, Mike, you've seen this franchise struggle so much to find that guy. How much relief do you think Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, like there's anxieties down the road, of course,
Sure.
but this is a huge win for them too.
It is. Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, they put their careers on the line
Yeah.
for Josh. I mean, if you think about it, they made that move. I mean, think about the people that thought they weren't even getting the best Josh in the draft. And look at Josh Rosen and Josh Allen, right? And then to believe in him right away. Brandon Beane had never been a general manager. Sean McDermott had, a year in as a head coach in the NFL.
Yeah.
And, and now you draft this guy and say, we're going to build our team around him.
Yeah.
And it means a lot. It's just, it's a different position. Everything is different, than with the quarterback. It is, because everything revolves around that guy. So they bet on him and bet on themselves to pick him. And the whole story, the whole organization flying that terrifying flight they had to Wyoming, where the plane had problems and all that with the Pagulas, and they just wanted to see him. And he has been, I'll put it to you this way. Let's get some truth serum going on Sean and Brandon. I think Josh Allen has been better than they hoped he could be to this point in his career. I mean, he, right up there in the MVP race, third year. I think they thought he would develop, but I think he's been even better than that. And I think they see the possibility of more steps. But you're right. This meant a lot to them personally, professionally. Now they know what's that next step. We got to go win it all.
Yeah. Yeah. They know what's ahead of them. And just having this, though, to move on from, just having this piece, which has eluded Buffalo for decades, is huge. And that will obviously dictate things going forward. I know we mentioned the salary cap situation, but I saw a really good comment on Josh Allen's press conference, and it was like, this is what having a franchise quarterback feels like.
Yeah.
And I just love that, because that's a feeling that Bills fans haven't had in quite some time.
I mean, they drafted guys in the first round, go back to, JP Lossman and, and then they end up with EJ Manuel, and it's like, like there's the old joke about, buying the old car and paying too much money for it and parking it in the garage. And every day you open the garage thinking it's going to be a Mercedes. And every day you open it up and you realize it ain't a Mercedes. Well, this time they drafted a Mercedes. Yeah. They did. They drafted a guy who's young and hungry and humble and hungry, and they paid him because he deserves it. Not relative to the real world, but relative to the football world, he deserves it. And they feel good about the next decade with Josh Allen as the quarterback. So, look, things can change, all these things we hinted at, but they have every reason to be very positive that they got this deal done now.
Yep, absolutely. And Dan Fates has a great story. We have it posted on Buffalo Plus, our channel. If you want to check it out, he did a great job doing from Fireball, California, where Josh grew up, to making his way to the franchise NFL quarterback. We have that story. So many more videos on Buffalo Plus. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. We always appreciate all the love. For Mike Catalana, I am Dan Fates. We will see you probably tomorrow with more Bills coverage.
Hang on a second. This is on our, so we're going to keep this on there. You just said you were Dan Fates.
I just said I was Dan Fates. Oh my God. That's terrible.
You've been hanging around these two guys way too much.
First of all, I need a fan in this room because it's 1 billion degrees. We're going to keep this in. And 2, it has been a very long day, folks.
So let's just make sure. For Jenna Cottrell, I'm Dan Fates. How's that?
This is so embarrassing. Are you sure we're keeping this in?
Why not?
Okay. All right, fine. All right.
So go ahead. Say goodbye to everybody.
About how it goes anyways. All right. We need to go. We will see you later. Please like and subscribe. Oh my gosh.